Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and I'd like to say it'd be a pleasure to be here, but it's quite humbling and intimidating to be on a panel with such an elite group of business experts. But I am honored to have been asked by my friend, Prem Watsa, he had to leave, he explained that to me, to share some thoughts about Four Seasons of how we have been able to create a long-term shareholder value. And over the span of the 55 years of going from private to public and now back to private, I believe most of our long-term shareholders have done reasonably well. As a matter of fact, if the original investors had kept their shares, their $270,000 investment in 1960 would have grown to approximately $2 billion in 2007. But realistically, over the course of that time, we've had to overcome our share of problems as well as coping with the many cyclical downturns that we all face. So I'm going to try to fill in some of the details about those four key strategic decisions that I referred to in the video. Now, over the years, I've often been asked, what was my vision of Four Seasons when we started? What was my grand dream? Well, folks, there was no vision. There was no grand dream. I was just trying to put a deal together, one deal. And that was to take the best of a motel and a hotel. The concept, to me, made good sense from my little experience. And I thought that it would have taken me 5 years to sell that idea. Well, I would have probably stopped after the first month. But it's interesting how days, weeks, months turn into years when the spark of an idea just doesn't go out. You see, that was my night shift job. That's what I was doing at night trying to sell this deal because I was still struggling to make a living as a builder. And when finally the first Four Seasons Motor Hotel opened in 1961, my vision of the future was to take in enough money today to pay for yesterday's bills. Because I believe our ability to predict the future depends on our background and our experience. And growing up in a poor immigrant household and knowing nothing, absolutely nothing about the hotel business, I simply didn't have the wherewithal to anticipate Four Seasons' success. In fact, one could argue that much of the company's success stemmed from my lack of knowledge. You see, having no experience in the hotel business, I had no preconceived notions about it. So as I said in the video, I approached the business from a customer's perspective. And it's from this premise that many innovations were born. As an example, we were the first company to put shampoo in the bathrooms. Now, they weren't the fancy bottles you see in every motel and hotel around the world. It was a little plastic sachet package. And you got in the shower and you saw this shampoo. Have you ever tried to open one of those plastic things with wet hands? You can't. You put it in your mouth, you drink half the shampoo, but the rest is there. Then there was 24-hour room service, 1-hour pressing, overnight dry cleaning, terry cloth robes, soft toilet paper. Okay. One of the first promotions we ever got was because of soft toilet paper. Stanley Marcus of Neiman Marcus was being interviewed on national television, and they questioned him and said, when you travel so much, where do you usually like to stay? And he said, well, I like to stay in a Four Seasons hotel because they have the best toilet paper I've ever used. You'll take the comments anywhere you can get them. Then there was complimentary shoe shine, kids and teen programs, no smoking floors, and the list goes on and on. At the time, I was told by more experienced people that it couldn't be done. But today, many of these innovations have become an industry norm. And so by focusing on what our customers want and need became our strategy for success. It's a strategy that has enabled us to grow, evolve, and constantly improve. And it's why our relationships with our customers is so important, exactly what Vernon was talking about. But the ties that bind us run much deeper than implementing a new service or amenity. Long-term success depends on connecting with people on an emotional level. Because luxury for our guests has little to do with the bells and whistles. It's about how the experience makes them feel. And our ability to understand the emotional needs of our guests is what has always set us apart from the competition. It's why Warren Buffett often talks about finding a sustainable competitive advantage. He describes it as a moat, a barrier to entry which he believes is a company's most important asset. And a recent report showed that a third of the companies featured in 3 very successful business books, In Search of Excellence, Built to Last, and Good to Great, are no longer part of that elite group. Their competitive advantages were not sustainable. And these were companies that were leaders in their industry for more than 40 years. And what the author, Jim Collins, concludes after 40 years of research on his part, and I quote, "What makes and keeps companies great are a strong set of core values, values that you never compromise." Now, there are those who say ethics in business is peripheral, if not irrelevant. But that has not been my experience. Because I believe a business agreement is more than a legal contract. It's a relationship rooted in trust. And trust is the emotional capital of a company. It's crucial to customer loyalty and to creating a brand name. And it rises or falls with our ethical reputation, the unseen but decisive factor in most business transactions. Now, over the years, I've been asked, what is my favorite hotel? And my answer has always been, and it's not political, the hotel I'm in is the favorite of the day. So let me explain. As you know, I've been responsible and involved in the creation and building of every hotel. So when I visit a hotel, and my pattern has not changed from whenever I do, I only spend part of a day or a whole day there. So I arrive in the morning and I'll leave the next morning. But while I'm there, I'm only dealing with that hotel, dealing with the people, dealing with their history, what other problems. So you get it back into the history and the emotions, and you knew when that baby was born. So while I'm there, it all comes back, whether it's the newest hotel that's just opening or one of our oldest hotels. It's exactly the same experience. So that is why when I'm in the hotel, and I always get the question when I'm in the hotel, and I say, you are my favorite of the day. And it's a fact. Because while I'm there, all the experiences that I knew that hotel went through to get where it is comes back to life. But if the question was, which hotel has been the most important, then there is only one answer, and that is the Four Seasons London, a hotel we built and opened in 1970. Because it gave me the insight as what we should do as a company. And it contrasted so sharply with the operation of our 1,600-room Four Seasons Sheraton in Toronto. It's now called the Sheraton Centre. But when we made that deal, I got first billing, and it was called the Four Seasons Sheraton. So that London hotel became a model for our future direction, which was to only operate medium-sized hotels of exceptional quality and to be the best. In predetermining our future, that was number one of 4 strategic decisions we considered key to our growth. And as I said, although we became leaders in innovation, we needed something special. So we studied, surveyed, and listened to our customers. Most were business executives, often pressured by time, and, of course, the need to be productive. And luxury was seen then mainly as architecture and decor. We decided to redefine luxury as service, a support system to fill in for the one left at home and office. And that was key decision number 2, a customer service strategy that made our contacts with our employees the most meaningful of all our working relationships. Because a customer satisfaction is inextricably linked to employee satisfaction. And customer focus can't exist without an employee focus. Now, this is not as easy to achieve as it sounds, because in the business of service, there is no after-production quality control. Production and consumption are simultaneous. Those few moments of service delivery are a company's make or break point when reputation is either confirmed or denied. And we are in the business where delivery of service, consistently superior service, normally depends on our frontline employees. Every greeting in our lobbies, every exchange with a housekeeper, every conversation with a concierge or salesperson defines and redefines Four Seasons relationships with our guests. These frontline staff represent the product to our customers. In the most realistic sense, they are the product, its personal component. So it's most important for everyone to understand that a positive attitude of our employees would be the only way to succeed. And that is all employees must share the same goal, the same purpose, and the same means. Now, we've always had an implicit operating philosophy. So in 1980, as we expanded, I decided to make it explicit, spell out our goals, our beliefs, and our values. And I tried to put this into a few words and took it to our senior people. Some scoffed, called it trite, unnecessary, literally laughed about it. Some agreed, but only in principle, implying no intention of acting it out, and that really bothered me. So I sat down with our Director of Communications and detailed a formal credo based on the Golden Rule, the cornerstone of what would later be called our corporate culture. In essence, to treat others, all others, customers, employees, partners, suppliers, as we ourselves would want to be treated. And that was key decision number 3. And there was nothing new about this, of course. Even back then, such credos were common, though seldom believed. What was new was we enforced it. Senior managers who couldn't or wouldn't walk the talk were all winnowed out within a few years. It was a painful process and personally distressing. And perhaps the hardest thing I ever did, but the fastest way for management to destroy its credibility is to say employees come first and to be seen putting them last. Better not to profess any values than not to live up to them. Now, conceiving a vision and a strategy is relatively easy. The hard part is selling it, getting it across to all levels of employees. And that became my task, preaching the gospel of service every day and on every trip to every hotel, continuously restating it, developing it, focusing employees at every level on one priority: giving customers added value through service. And that's the way it has to be. Key decision number 4 was a low-risk financial strategy, shifting investments in hotel ownership to investment in management expertise. Our vision had now evolved. We would create a reputation for service so clear in people's mind that the Four Seasons name would become an asset of far greater value than the ownership of real estate, a global brand name. But I also believe that one of the many measures of our success is the influence and impact we've had on others. And as an example, there's a book called The Apple Experience, which is about how Steve Jobs created his retail empire. And in it, the author describes how Steve Jobs modeled the Apple retail stores after Four Seasons. As you can imagine, and as you heard Vernon, we get many accolades from over many, many years. But this acknowledgement is truly remarkable. So let me read you a chapter from chapter 1, and I am now quoting the book. The story of the Apple experience did not begin with the opening of the first Apple store in 2001. It began 40 years earlier with the founding of another brand that would be credited with completely reinventing the customer experience, the Four Seasons. When Steve Jobs first decided to enter the retail business, he hired former Target executive Ron Johnson. Jobs challenged Johnson with this one question: who offers the best customer service in the world? The answer was not another computer retailer, or any retailer for that matter. The answer turned out to be the Four Seasons Hotel. And the book goes on to say that as they were developing their customer service standards, Jobs and Johnson would ask themselves, what would the Four Seasons do? They realized what we discovered so many years earlier, that customers who feel happy and satisfied will reward your brand with their business and loyalty. We now have 105 hotels in 43 countries and more than 50 under development, each a showpiece of outstanding quality. And this has been growth based fundamentally on belief. Belief in product quality, belief in your principles, and belief that a competent, committed workforce is a company's primary competitive advantage. Now, I know that is not the prevailing view. According to the Wall Street Journal, employee loyalty is dead, and most companies seem to believe a committed workforce in these times is an oxymoron. Well, we don't think so. It's hard to imagine a group of people more committed to the work than the team at the Four Seasons Maldives during the tsunami that struck Southeast Asia several years ago. When the wave approached and struck our hotel, each employee acted intuitively to ensure the comfort and safety of our guests. And I emphasize intuitively. There was no time to give orders. They did everything they could think of to ease minds and calm nerves. Some were even credited with saving lives. Within 24 hours, they evacuated the island and chartered a plane and flew every guest to safety. Following the tsunami, there was, of course, an outpouring of gratitude for many, many of our guests. And one wrote, and I quote, "Let me stress that your group's strength rests on rock, made up of local employees who, while having been selected for doing their job well, have shown in a time of utmost crises, a level of dedication that no training and no amount of money can ever generate. Clearly, our employees' action that day touched our guests in ways they will never forget. What they accomplished in the midst of adversity may sound extraordinary, but I believe any of our employees around the world would act with the same dignity and commitment. Motivated by an inner need to do well by others, our people delight and surprise our guests every day. The sum of their efforts is what makes Four Seasons unique. So by nurturing the full potential of every employee from top to bottom, I believe that businesses can tap the most essential asset for long-term success. It's all about people. And it's an approach that can apply to every business in every industry, as demonstrated by Apple and so many others. Again, thank you for inviting me. I hope you can find some value in the story and experiences. And I think Bernard and I are pleased to answer any questions for you.